Welcome to Golden Blue, everybody, home of the college football fan. And don't forget about the checklist. Hat check, sunglasses check, Pepsi check, notes check, sources check, and thick skin is a check. And don't forget to sing gear to represent your team and yourself in my background. Send it to P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina, 29657, and get yourself a shout out. On to the next video. In case you're wondering, these are the teams that we don't have represented for the mini helmets. As you can see, we actually have quite a few big brands that's not represented here at Golden Blue. So get your team represented here on Golden Blue. Hey, you already know what time it is, so might as well sit down, brace yourself, and buckle up because you are entering the speculation zone. Now, as far as like today's video, I probably sound like a broken record. And basically, I am because number one, I want to thank the Swaim Show again for coming on last night for a live show. And if you haven't seen that live show, you really need to check it out because I think it's Golden Blue Dude's best live show ever. Go check it out when you get a chance. So thank you, Swaim Show. And once again, I am going to mention his tweets again because once again, it's relevant to this video as well. So this is from the Swaim Show again. Recruiting already taking hits in Pac-12 as questionnaires we annually sent to rising seniors coming back with more comments than normal. And players definitely concerned with Pac-12 not being on television so that their family and friends can watch. This is a very big deal. The Pac-12 has a TV deal, but not only are they embarrassed to release it, as few will see it, on Amazon, ESPN, only one linear game, and it's only 50 to 60% of the money the Big 12 teams are getting. Good luck getting teams to sign granted rights with that, especially the Ducks and UW. Smiling face emoji. Not really the Pac-12's fault, but of the many problems they're now going through. Possibly the worst of the worst is that the TV folks are going through bankruptcies and downsizing. Not much they can do about that as the Big 12 took the money that was left. So today I've talked about how recruiting is going to suffer because of this TV deal. Not just because of the money, but it's the exposure. The exposure is the biggest part of this deal. Only one game on linear cable per week. That is it. ESPN lowballed the Pac-12. They want 2 games, but only one on regular ESPN, Pac-12 After Dark, and the other one on ESPN Plus. So if you want to catch as many Pac-12 games as possible, you have to subscribe to Amazon Prime Video, you have to subscribe to Apple TV, and you have to subscribe to ESPN Plus. Personally, no thank you. So I've talked about how that could affect recruiting because these recruits, they want to play on television in front of their friends and family. So recruiting is going to suffer in the Pac-12. I've also talked about how the cities might be putting pressure on these Pac-12 universities because the revenue and profits within the city and surrounding cities gonna suffer. Because whenever a team starts doing bad, guess what? The revenue in those cities starts going down because people start to not care. And even though the Pac-12 is guaranteed a playoff spot with this expansion, because of the gap with recruiting, whenever they do get to the playoffs, they're going to get smashed out before they even get anywhere. But on this particular video, I want to talk about the possibility of other conferences not even wanting to schedule the Pac-12 because of this bad TV deal. Now listen, I'm not saying that something can't be worked out as far as, a SEC versus Pac-12, Big 12 versus Pac-12, ACC versus Pac-12, or Big 10 versus Pac-12 games being televised. I'm sure they can work something out, but the Pac-12 signing a mostly streaming deal would discourage these other conferences from even scheduling the Pac-12, especially at the Pac-12 team's house. Now, if they do mostly road games, then that's where you can work it out. But once you switch it over to where you're playing at the Pac-12 team's house, then you're talking about your game being streamed and not televised unless you're lucky enough to be on Pac-12 After Dark. But it would be an out-of-conference game, so I don't even think the Pac-12 After Dark would be a factor into this. And that's the main argument that a lot of people like to use. No, ESPN needs the Pac-12 because they need the Pac-12 After Dark. No, they don't. They don't need the Pac-12 After Dark. They need anybody after dark. So if these teams do jump, and ESPN really wants a large majority to actually jump to the Big 12, because they do have a TV deal with the Big 12, they don't have a TV deal with the Big 10, so they're not going to be excited about any teams jumping to the Big 10. But if teams jump to the Big 12, the SEC, even though I don't see that happening, or even the ACC, I do think there's a possibility that some of these teams could end up in the ACC, because the ACC lines up with them academics for the Pac-12 teams. So yes, a real possibility that some of these Pac-12 teams could end up jumping to the ACC. So some interesting reports happened while I was actually editing this particular video. By the way, shout out to the Monty Show. We had a little snafu over there. I actually did a membership over there. I love their channel so much, I decided to join. And for whatever reason, it purchased through my other account, which is actually inactive. I never use it, and I don't know why that happened. So it came off as I was trolling or trying to impersonate myself. So I do apologize to the Monty Show. Seriously, I didn't do that on purpose. I don't know why it showed up as purchased from that account. I don't even use that account anymore. I forgot I had that account. But the Monty Show is actually reporting on this. Says the Monty Show 920, ESPN is out on Pac-12 TV deal. We are nowhere is what ESPN sources are telling the Monty Show. Also, YouTube, the Monty Show. The Pac-12 and ESPN are not in a good place. Is the Pac-12 going 100% streaming? Sports Illustrated says Pac-12 could indeed fall apart if TV deal doesn't come together. CBS reporting today. Nothing to suggest new Pac-12 media rights deal is near with 15 months left on current contract. Then, of course, our favorite college football conspiracy theorist MacGyver. BY Brett Yormark has met with presidents from CU, Colorado, and AZ, Arizona in recent days. We'll be meeting with ASU president soon. So that kind of goes along with what I've been saying. I've been hearing that Brett Yormark is going on a private jet to a school out west, and my guess was Arizona State, so my guess might be correct. Tide may be turning. Presidents are getting antsy despite public talking points. 45 seconds to Pac midnight. Hashtag Pac-12 doomsday clock. Then finally, the Swaim Show. He came onto the show last night. Great guest. I want to do it again. He says this. Breaking news. ESPN only paying $9 million per Pac-12 team. We already knew that part. But now they're going to offer multiple Pac-12 schools the same money. They'll pay each to make a Big 12 move. If more than 4, I'm not a fan. So ESPN is actually possibly trying to push these Pac-12 schools into the Big 12. Not only lowballing the Pac-12 or possibly pulling out of the Pac-12 negotiations, but literally giving incentive to say, hey, go to the Big 12. We actually want you to go to the Big 12. This is getting crazy. So for ESPN, teams jumping to either the Big 12, the SEC, or the ACC, they are all for that. That would be amazing. Now for Fox, they are okay with these teams jumping to either to the Big 12 or to the Big 10 because they do have a TV deal with the Big 12 and the Big 10. So everything is against the Pac-12 right now, including possibly the actual Pac-12 cities themselves. Because they would suffer if these Pac-12 teams start suffering in recruiting and they start losing on the field and the fans start losing interest and they start to not buy the drinks and the food and the entertainment that goes along with game day. There's just no interest in a losing football team. And that's why West Virginia fans want Neil Brown out ASAP, because in year 4, he went 5-7. That is inexcusable here in Morgantown. And no, we don't expect him to get us to a national championship or even to the playoffs, although that would be amazing and the best thing ever. But 8-4, 9-3, 10-win season every once in a while, yeah, you at least have to do that. He struggles to have a winning season. So West Virginia is a prime example of that. You see later on in the year whenever the fans figure out that West Virginia not even going to make a bowl and you see the stadium half empty. You ask the vendors and the restaurants and anything that does entertainment around Morgantown whenever the Mountaineers are not very good, and they're going to say it sucks really, really bad. The energy around the city is not good and the business around the city is not any good. So even the Pac-12 cities themselves might be against the Pac-12 teams signing this Pac-12 TV deal because it will hurt them in recruiting and it will cause their football teams to not be very good and fan interest will dwindle. Swaim Show has reported, and I've quoted from this tweet before, but I have to quote from it again. You've seen from multiple reports that the Big 12 is talking directly or through third party with the four corner schools of the Pac-12. But I didn't report that, as one school had not been in talks. Now, all 4 schools are talking to Yormark one way or another. My money is on Arizona State being that last school to actually talk to the Big 12. So it looks like Brett Yormark is trying to lock down all 4 corners from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. And I think the Big 10 is actually waiting on the Big 12 to make those moves. And then they'll get Washington and whoever else, whether it's Oregon, Stanford, or Cal, doesn't really matter to me. They have to get Washington and somebody else. They're going to wait on the Big 12 to make their move first, and they're going to wait on Kevin Warren to go to the Chicago Bears and get a new commissioner. But yes, they will also wait on the Big 12 to make their move first. So it's an interesting question to dissect as far as would other conferences actually schedule Pac-12 teams if they actually do sign into this media rights deal. I think the days of out-of-conference games being at the home of these Pac-12 teams could be in the past if they actually do ink in this deal. So there's a lot of things to consider whenever it comes to this streaming deal. So y'all let me know in the comment section. Number 1, do you think that if these Pac-12 teams decide to sign this Pac-12 media rights deal, that their recruiting will suffer? Number 2, do you think if these Pac-12 teams decide to sign this Pac-12 media rights deal, that their cities will suffer when it comes to business? And number 3, do you think that if these Pac-12 teams sign this Pac-12 media rights deal, that even their out-of-conference scheduling ends up suffering as well? That's all I got for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.